Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ashok Loti, and I'm Assistant Outreach Officer, PUAN Punjab. We are here for the final episode of ASG Live Sessions. And today we have three prestigious alumni with us who have been doing their small grants. They have completed their online small grants. So we are going to have a very great session today in which we are going to have a discussion on tips to score a great alumni small grant. So I would like to introduce my panel. First of all, it's Ms. Shahab Niazi. She's the founder and CEO of Trailblazer. Then I have Mahnoor Rathore. She is founder of Ventures for Sustainability. And third, I have Mr. Arham Ishtiaq. He's the co-founder, CTO at Connect Here. Hello, everyone.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having us.
Honored. So we are going to start with Ms. Shahab Niazi and then Mahnoor and followed by Arham. If you can kindly introduce yourselves with your small grant, please.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here today. So my name is Shahab, and as Ashok said that I'm the founder and CEO of Trailblazer. So my small grant was called Digital Mastery Unlocked. It was basically a series of 3 courses delivered completely online. And they were aimed at economic empowerment of aspiring entrepreneurs, existing entrepreneurs, freelancers, and bloggers. These courses basically included digital entrepreneurship, social media marketing, and financial literacy. And it was a 3-month program in total. Yeah, so.
Sounds great. Over to you, Mahnoor.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Mahnoor. My small grant program was Ventures for Sustainability. It is a regional program that works within the South Asia region, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and India. And we work on interregional harmony, interregional collaboration by developing small grassroots levels and implementing them across South Asia region.
Wow, that was beyond the borders. So Arham, over to you.
Hi, so I'm Arham. I am one of the co-founders of Connect Here, and our focus for the ASG project was called Countering COVID-19. And it was a series of 10 different videos that was meant to serve as a very comprehensive source of information and resources for deaf individuals all across Pakistan so that they could navigate themselves safely throughout this global pandemic, taking in care their language of use, which is sign language.
Wow, great. They say be the change you want to see in the world. And we at Mission always encourage and endorse our alumni with special needs, or I would call it alumni who are differently able. So good to hear about your grant as well. So moving forward to the most important part of this session, that is the tips that we are going to have from these alumni who have scored the grants. So my first question goes to Ms. Mahnoor. Mahnoor, I wanted to ask you that what are the factors or environment a person needs to consider while they're writing a proposal?
Thank you so much, Shahab. That is one of the most, I think, fundamental questions about a grant लिखते होते हो, किसी भी तरह की grant हो. This is a very, like a well-rounded tip. You must take your time and have a sound mind and be very peaceful when you're writing down your grant. Okay. आपने नींद पूरी करनी है, आप नींद पूरी करो. You wanna eat McDonald's, you want to go out with your friends, but once you're done, you're in a good mood, just sit down. And the first thing to do is actually read out the questions. कि questions क्या है? जब आप अपने questions को समझते हो ना, then you are able to write a much more informed proposal. अब जैसे when I was working, I think the first thing which I did, जो मेरी, I think most important मेरे लिए जो step था, वो था understanding my audience. Okay. I know कि मैंने करना क्या था. I know कि I wanted to have a fellowship that is going to work for 12 weeks. It's all going to be online. But मेरी audience क्या है? Okay. Is my audience someone who goes to college? Is my audience, for example, for special needs children? It's my audience marketed towards, making people understand who are business-oriented mind. So understanding that is one of the most important things. जब आप अपनी audience को समझ लेते हो ना, then it becomes very easy for you to design your project. And I think the second step for me would have been how to design it. उसका design क्या है, उसका structure क्या है. अगर मैं ये pilot कर रही हूँ तो इसमें कितने लोग included हैं. अगर मैं which medium I'm going to use. Is it going to be Google Meet? Is it going to be Zoom? That's one of the most important things. आपको पता है, because ever since COVID came, there's so many platforms like Zoom and Google Meet जो एकदम से burst out हुए हैं. So even deciding between those is a bit, it will take your time, क्योंकि as हमारा main aim यही है कि हमारी सारी grants online है, तो ये factor बहुत determine करता है. And the last factor मैं आपसे कहूँगी कि देखिए, रिसर्च इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. आपके इर्द गिर्द और लोग क्या कर रहे हैं वो जानना बहुत जरूरी है, क्योंकि जब आपको पता होगा कि दूसरे लोग क्या कर रहे हैं, तब आपको 6 लोग फॉर एग्जांपल ABC कर रहे हैं, देन आप उसको D उसमें किस तरह इम्प्लीमेंट करेंगे. सो आई थिंक ये 3 चीजें हैं, जो 3-4 चीजें हैं जो बहुत ज्यादा मेरे ख्याल से मैटर करती हैं जब आप एक ग्रांट बैठ के लिख रहे होते हो.
Thank you, Mahnur. Apart from having a McDonald's, the good take from it is like understand your audience first, the people who are to whom you're referring your grant. So moving to Ms. Shahab. Shahab, I want you to ask you that how to think of a winning idea. Like, how would you put yourself in evaluators' shoes? So do you think we need to have that perspective as well?
Right. So first of all, winning idea, like क्या होता है, what do we call a winning idea, right? It's not something that is, like really hot right now. Yeah, ऐसी कोई बात नहीं होती basically. And like they say that ideas are a dime a dozen, right? So anything that you can execute well is an amazing idea. लेकिन अगर आप उसको execute नहीं कर सकते, तो वो idea मतलब idea तक रहेगा और वो आगे नहीं जाएगा, right? So if one has a lot of ideas, we walk around in the world, we see things happening, obviously we observe things, तो उससे आपको बहुत सारे ideas आते रहते हैं. But when it comes to applying for this particular grant, so I would say that first and foremost, go through the requirements of the application. उसमें जो themes होते हैं, मतलब there are special themes and there are other themes, right? And they have that cap के आपको इतने पैसे मिलेंगे अगर आप इस theme में apply करते हैं, right? So first go through that, right? So like उसमें economic empowerment हो सकता है, ये मैं वैसे examples दे रही हूँ, you can go to the website and check the themes for this year. But there are environment related themes and economic empowerment and all that, right? So just go through all of that and think up, like क्योंकि आप अपने जिन लोगों को आप जानते हैं और आपके खुद से जो हैं, you have certain skill sets, right? You are good at certain things, you're not good at certain things, you are interested in certain things. So just think, keeping those themes in mind, just keep on. And एक और बहुत जरूरी बात ये है कि you need to do your research. मतलब अब जब आपकी research अच्छी होगी ना, तो आपका winning idea बनेगा. If you have an idea, it's raw, do research के लोगों ने दुनिया में और कैसे उस चीज पे काम किया, right? Because everything literally has been done and dusted in the world. There are no new ideas, right? आपको जो idea है वो किसी ने जरूर दुनिया में किया हुआ होगा. So just see how they did it, what are the best practices that you can pick up, right? So these are, I think, a few things that can make your idea a winning one, and that can help you with how to outline the execution as well. The second part है evaluators choose वाला, वो it's about the structure and the way you write the whole thing, right? It needs to have a certain kind of a flow, it needs to have a certain kind of a language. So think about that well also. And जैसे आप लोगों ने भी कहा था कि आखिरी मिनट पे जो है वो ग्रांट नहीं अप्लाई होती, ठीक है? So आपने एप्लीकेशन के लिए पढ़ लिया जो भी स्पेसिफिकेशंस हैं, कीप थिंकिंग अबाउट इट. द माइंड थिंक्स अबाउट थिंग्स क्रिएटिवली when it's not trying to actually think, in my experience. जब आप एक्टिवली किसी चीज पे नहीं सोच रहे होते तब आपको क्रिएटिव आइडियाज आते हैं. Just keep jotting them down and then make a flow for the grant that you have to write. Like take your time, और फिर एंड में जो है उसको अच्छी तरह पढ़ें, खुद प्रूफ करें. जैसे अजब ने पहले कहा था कि किसी को let someone, if you are done with it in time. I am personally never done with my proposals on time. 2 मिनट पहले खत्म होता है सिर्फ इतने टाइम पे कि वो सबमिट हो जाए. But that is not something that I would recommend, right? It's a very bad habit. So yeah, so think about the evaluator who will be reading your grant proposal, and what would they think, like unke liye kya hai which will sort of make it stand out. They're going through maybe more than 100 proposals, right? So what is it that's going to make you stand out and make your proposal stand out? Think from that perspective.
Right. Thank you very much. आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा है कि first of all we need to have a self assessment कि हमारे skills, what are our strongest skills, and then we should move forward in it in the domain we are good at. So moving forward to Mr. Arham. Arham, this is a very challenging question. So the question is, what were the challenges in applying for a virtual grant and how did you overcome them? I guess that's everybody's question who's watching us.
Definitely, definitely. I think it was such a different thing for us क्योंकि मतलब usually हम लोग जो बहुत अरसे से even through connected projects कर रहे थे, a lot of them were very physical in nature, whether it was in Lahore, Islamabad, or even in Karachi over here. So I think the first thing that we came to doing was like we first decided कि यार what we don't want to do is just turn our actual sessions into online ones. We just ask people to come over on a Zoom meeting and then just join it and just have people talk. So which is why it kind of brought us to a point where we were thinking, yeah, how do we deliver value in a way where it's convenient for everyone in a virtual setting? So then we obviously came down to creating videos, because that's something that once it's out there, it's available for anyone for free, and people can watch it at their own leisure. They can play it, watch the whole thing, or maybe stop at a certain point and then continue later on. So I feel it was something that we did put a lot of time in, because for us, it was also for a very first time that we were kind of trying to do a virtual project of sorts. And we were just happy to see that, PUAN ASG was able to see the value in that and support us in the way that they did, because now we can proudly hail that nearly tens of thousands of individuals all across Pakistan were benefited just through those web series in its own. And we would have never had that kind of impact had we done some sessions or something like that. So I feel while it was challenging, I think one way to kind of skirt that challenge is to think about how you can make your project sustainable beyond its implementation. So if it sustains after that, then you have like a winning project right then and there. So I hope that kind of helps shed some light on how we went around that challenge. So Ashraf,
Thank
I
you,
think you're
Aram.
muted.
Yeah, sorry for that. Thank you, Aram. I would surely say that your PUAN ASG really made a difference for many people. Over to you, sounds a bit, they are kind of like similar, but their meanings are different, right? So my question to you is like, if you see the ESG form, so how will you differentiate between the project goals and objectives? My question to you is,
Acha,
if somebody is like
Ashok,
filling the form, yeah.
so basically the way I identified, there's one thing, आप जब form पढ़ रहे हो तो ESG का तो a lot of things are interlinked and a lot of things have similar meaning in the form. तो वो obviously हर एक बंदे के लिए confusing हो जाता है. For me personally, I think it matters from project to project. For example, अगर किसी का project school oriented है या it's more focused with children, उनके goals and objectives different होंगे. But for me personally, what I associated with goals was what is going to be the ultimate outcome for my project that I want to achieve. For example, my goal was that, okay, so I am going to have an international regional level के ऊपर workshops for 12 consecutive weeks. I'm going to train these many people. I'm going to train them in this areas, for example, leadership, entrepreneurship, so forth. And by the end of the 12th week, I'm going to have a positive outcome. For example, maybe they end up writing a research paper, maybe they end up implementing a small project. So, ये तो थे मेरे goals. अब जो मैंने objectives देखे थे, objectives in my project were something that I was going to assess internally. That was something जो मैं impose करी थी अपने project के design के internal framework में. That would have been कि मेरा project interregional, for example. So that was a objective that I wanted to meet. Second objective was it's supposed to have an intercollaboration and capacity building. So that was something that my aim was to achieve as well. And interestingly, I actually read the US mission to Pakistan के जो objectives हैं, and I saw कि मेरा project उनके objectives के साथ किस तरह align करे. For example, one of the aims of the US mission to Pakistan is to ensure people's ties, okay, on a regional and a local level. So even though this project was not being operated within Pakistan, I knew it for a fact that the ties are being constructed on a more regional level. So इसमें थोड़ा सा आपको ना सोचना पड़ता है कि यार मैं जो काम कर रहा हूँ वो सिर्फ कैटेगरी में नहीं आ रहा, उसका बियॉन्ड उसका क्या स्कोप है, ठीक है. तो आई थिंक दैट इज द बेसिक डिफरेंस बिटवीन दीज टू, एटलीस्ट फॉर मी.
Right. Thank you. Moving to Shahab. Shahab, I wanted to ask you that since you are in the digital field, and this is the question that I would like to ask you, that when we talk about virtual grants, normally entrepreneurship or e-commerce comes to our mind. So I wanted to ask you that are there any other domains you would like to tell our alumni to look through to develop a proposal, because we are totally running on virtual ASG cycles. So is there anything else you want to share with the alumni?
Right. So देखिए, I think in my opinion, digital is just a medium through which you are trying to do anything, right? चाहे आपने business करना है, चाहे आपने grant के लिए project करना है, चाहे आपने कोई चीज बेचनी है, चाहे आपने किसी से connect करना है, I could write someone a letter, but I can also do a Zoom call, right? So I'm just choosing the digital medium to do that particular task, right? So मैं ये कहूंगी कि जब आप मतलब डिजिटल का यूज सोचें ना, या डिजिटल बिजनेस मॉडल्स के बारे में सोचें कि आप कैसे डिजिटल को इनकॉर्पोरेट करेंगे अपनी ग्रांट में, तो पहले आप ये सोचें डिजिटल को छोड़ के कि आप करना क्या चाहते हैं, मतलब व्हाट इज इट दैट यू वांट टू डू, व्हाट इज योर प्रोजेक्ट ऑल अबाउट, राइट? अब जैसे अगर आपने मतलब मैंने जो था वो कोर्सेज डिजाइन किए, ठीक है, सो दैट वाज लाइक एन ई लर्निंग थिंग, ठीक है. सो यू कुड डू upskilling, reskilling, ठीक है, जो ई लर्निंग में आ जाता है, ठीक है. ई कॉमर्स इज लाइक प्योरली सेलिंग समथिंग. You could make a marketplace platform to like sort of connect people, ठीक है. फिर आपने अगर कोई भी चीज हाईलाइट करनी है किसी भी किस्म की, आप उसके लिए एक प्लेटफॉर्म बना सकते हैं, मतलब which can just be a simple website. You could just show like pictures and descriptions and like that. जिस तरह आप एक एग्जीबिशन पे जाते हैं उस तरह आप एक वर्चुअल एग्जीबिशन कर सकते हैं एक वेबसाइट बना के. You can do it online through Zoom. So there are different ways, right? तो इसलिए पहले ये सोचें कि आप करना क्या चाहते हैं, उसके बाद डिजिटल को जो है वो उसके अंदर लेके आए, right? Because that will sort of make life easy for you, and also it will not make digital sound like something which is really बहुत मुश्किल चीज नहीं लगेगी. वरना आपको होता है कि वेबसाइट होगी, ये होगा, फलाना प्लेटफॉर्म होगा. Just use the platforms that are already available, and so that you have to spend minimum amount of money, and you don't have to develop something from scratch. मतलब एक solution, और I think digital के हर किस्म के solutions मौजूद हैं दुनिया में, right? So just think of what you want to do, and then think of different platforms digital that are available to actually achieve that task in the most efficient and least expensive way that you can actually do within the budget of the grant.
Right. I would ask the next question again to you, Shahab, because it's related to the same question, related to the question that I've just asked. So since your grant was strictly digital, as we have mentioned, can you share some tips about how and where to find the user-friendly and effective platforms? Like, are there any platforms where the alumni can find different things that, on which they can use those platforms for their grants, and the budgets are there so that it's easy for them to budget them in the budget proposal of ASG?
Right. So I think Zoom is one thing which is like a universal thing of usage right now, right? And a lot of people have actually learned how to use Zoom also in terms of the target audience, right? Matlab, I trained people, like 6 batches of people sitting in FATA, different regions, right, using Zoom for a training. So Zoom जो है वो I think अब एक universal चीज बन गई है. वैसे ये है कि देखें, you have WhatsApp for coordination, ठीक है, generally free of cost, any kind of coordination you need to do. ऐसे लोग जो email नहीं भी पढ़ते वो WhatsApp सबके पास है, ठीक है. So if there are people who don't use email, you can use WhatsApp, right? You can use Zoom if you want to have any kinds of like online event अगर आपने करना है जिसमें आपने Facebook पे live जाना है या कहीं पे भी live जाना है, right? So you can do that through Zoom. उसका आप basic तरीन package भी अगर ले लें तो it allows about I think 100 participants, and I think it's like $14 a month or something, right? So you can just if you go to the Zoom website, वहाँ पे उनके pricing and plans available होते हैं. You can just like convert the money and add that to your budget. So also there's StreamYard, right? So the difference is कि अगर मैंने एक course run करना है closed session में जिसमें मेरे पास 40 participants हैं, ठीक है, so I would choose Zoom instead of StreamYard, because StreamYard is a streaming kind of a प्रोग्राम, राइट, जिसमें 2 लोग आपस में बैठ के बोल रहे हैं अगर, तो वो सिर्फ स्ट्रीम हो रहा होगा किसी प्लेटफॉर्म पे, फेसबुक पे या कहीं और, या रिकॉर्ड हो रहा होगा, राइट. So, and if you try to buy StreamYard for like including 40 people, it'll be very expensive, right? So you use Zoom ka basic package, which allows, like 100 people. So StreamYard के भी आपको मिल जाएंगे. Again, I would say depending on your need, right? अगर आप website पे आए, तो to develop a website, for example, if you want to, because a lot of people, for example, if you're doing like an awareness campaign of some sort, जिसमें आप लोगों का काम भी showcase कर रहे हैं, probably you can do it on Facebook, Instagram. पहले free platforms देखेंगे, to what extent can you use them, right? And do you need a website? If you need a website, you can just buy like the domain and hosting in less than 10,000 rupees. And अगर आपको खुद WordPress आता है, that's like free work that you can just do for the grant. But if you don't know it, then I think you can get it made starting from like, I think minimum 15,000 rupees, right? If it's not something very fancy. So these are, I think, just the basic things. फिर वो बहुत सारी आगे advanced चीजें हैं, which are with which the expenses also keep on increasing. कि अगर आपने कोर्स की वेबसाइट बनानी है, उसके लिए plugins, and all that, but that's expensive, right? So, and then that is something which is a recurring cost. If you don't, जाहिर है आप sustainability के बारे में सोचेंगे. अगर आप चाहते हैं कि project जो है वो beyond the grant period चले, so then it's something you need to think of the recurring cost, right? Whether you are in a position to actually pay that cost on an annual or a monthly basis or not.
Right. Thank you for a very factual and informative answer. Manur, would you like to add something to it?
Yes, actually, I was going to say कि because हम लोग digitalize कर रहे हैं काफी सारी चीजें कोविड की वजह से, तो एक चीज जो मैं लोगों से कहूंगी वो आपको ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा कि आपका जो ऑडियंस है ना, it becomes a bit limited. आप देखो, you are creating a platform or a program for a particular sector of the society. जैसे पहले without COVID, things were very easy. Things were easy enough कि आपने एक project implement करने, आपने grant apply किए, ठीक है, आप जाके किसी back जहाँ पे झोंपड़ियाँ होती हैं, किसी भी part of the country of your city, you can easily go and implement your work. लेकिन since हम लोग कोविड की वजह से virtual जा रहे हैं, तो आपको ये देखना पड़ेगा कि यार मेरी, और वही दोबारा बात आती थी कि हम लोग की ऑडियंस जो है एक लिमिटेड लेवल पे चली गई हुई है. Secondly, I would want to say कि like a lot of free platforms do exist. For example, मैंने अपना सारा project Zoom के ऊपर नहीं किया. Even though I needed 100+ participants, मैंने अपना सारा project Google Meet के through किया, which is free. Up until June, उनकी Google की COVID-19 policy थी to keep Google Meet free up to 100 audience for the first 6 months of 2021. आपका मुझे नहीं पता. So try looking at organizations who are actually putting up free softwares to make sure that people have access to communicating. That's one of the things I would say. And another important point that I want to add is actually look like it's being said over here, look the people around you. There's so many organizations who would want to collaborate with you. So try looking for organizations who have a similar minded project, लेकिन उनके पास Zoom की access नहीं है, या उनको implementation उनसे अच्छी नहीं की जा रही, for example, या उनसे जो उनका project है, अभी मैं बहुत एक interesting project पढ़ रही थी. There was a Kuwait के अंदर, there's a project for transgenders and they needed someone to implement the project within Lahore. And उनके पास सारा material नहीं था. For example, they didn't have access to, the person who was creating out the project didn't have access to actually reach out to the people who were in the main city. So what they did is they made small virtual classrooms in the middle of the road where they would take their laptop, take their Zong device and have a very quick class in the middle of nowhere. So think about it in a way which innovative हो, जो boundaries cross कर रहा हो. It is supposed to be virtual, लेकिन virtual कहाँ तक कर सकते हो आप? So try to think beyond that scope as well.
Thank you, Manur. It was a great advice that we should always, there's always more than one perspective to a thing or a situation. Duly noted. So over to Arham. Arham, I wanted to ask you that how important is it to research the theme of the grant? Because we have special themes grant as well.
Yes, so I mean, obviously the one word answer is yes, it is really important. But I feel the whole idea of a theme in itself is very interesting because it gives you not only just a specific direction to look in, but then simultaneously it gives you a whole domain of possibilities that you may not have even thought possible before. So I think what we've previously discussed over here was the fact that we should kind of really look into like what is happening all around the world, and like how have they implemented it, and how can we in some way like contextualize it and localize it and bring it to like our localities and communities. So researching, I feel, is very important, because that also showcases to the evaluators of the grant themselves that you know what you are absolutely talking about. So for us, because we focused on COVID-related messaging, accessibility, and deaf individuals, that was something we didn't have to research, because that was something we had already worked a lot in. So it's either or. So once you have a theme, you have to ensure you're either very well experienced in it, or you're very well versed in understanding what the theme entails. So before anyone comes up with any idea, I would suggest actually understanding what the available themes are and what specifically kind of interests you best. Because if you're interested in the particular theme, there is a very highly likely chance that what you will come up with will be something that's kind of unique, and you'll do it in a way where people can see you getting engaged with that project as well. So just staying in the domain where you fit best, I think, is very important, apart from researching as well.
Very right. Over to you, Mahnoor. I wanted to ask you that which part of the proposal you spend the most time on and why? If you can kindly unmute yourself.
Sorry. मुझे काफी सारे लोगों ने सवाल पूछे हैं. A lot of people have reached out to me beyond this session today as well. For me personally, I did a lot of research. I was designing a program that was on a regional level, and there is no fellowship in Pakistan at this point, which is operating on an international level and within regional level of South Asia. We recently अखुवत ने launch की है, but I'm so glad कि मैंने पहले से अपनी काम करके implement कर लिया है. But
PUAN alumni are always ahead of time. I know that.
Yeah. I hope you always are. But I think research. I can't explain to you मैंने कितनी सारी fellowships के design, कितनी सारी fellowships जिसमें मैं खुद भी गई हुई थी, कितनी सारी fellowships जो मैंने online ढूंढी, उनके design को सारा search किया, उनका देखा कि अच्छा यार इसमें क्या सबसे good practice कौन सी है, and how I can bring that good practice into my design. I read a number of books. Some of them were completely useless. मुझे लगा मैंने बस, because I'm an avid book reader, so it came naturally for me to do the research from the books beginning with. But I think research is the biggest thing you can do. आप research करोगे तो आपको पता चलेगा कि बाकी लोग क्या कर रहे हैं, and आप जितना research करोगे उतनी knowledge आएगी, उतना आपके दिमाग के neurons click करेंगे कि अच्छा, if someone is doing A plus B, how can I do it B plus A instead of doing A plus B? Fellowships are not uncommon. Fellowships are the most common thing in our sector. I know the next person to do has gone on a fellowship. The problem thing is how you can bring that to Pakistan. And once you do bring it to Pakistan, how can you make it that's so different that everybody looks at it and says, "Yeah, ये पहले हमने क्यों नहीं किया?" The idea is there. अब उसको innovate किस तरह करते हो वो आपकी research और आपके design के ऊपर matter करता है. Again, research and design is the key for me at least.
Right, you're very right. The research and prior knowledge about something or literature review adds value to it, and you're more focused. This is what I got from your discussion. Am I right?
Yep, you're very right.
Great. So moving on to Mr. Arham. Arham, I wanted to ask you that, do you have any tips about writing the project methodology? Because this is one of the main part of the ASG proposal, in which you have to basically discuss everything that you are doing. So how well you know about what you are doing? That's what I have told. So what are your take on projects methodology? Any tips?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that helped us personally was actually understanding what sort of parameters we would kind of quantify, and then talking about those numbers directly. Because like we all know, math is a universal language, right? And we may not like it as much, but it can help portray a lot of information very concisely. So what we figured out was we defined certain KPIs about what would entail, a successful video, and like how many people we would need for it, what's the projected views for it, what's watch time, and all of these different things. And then we talked about the human element of it, like how many team members would we need, what would be the script like, how long would be the script, and we defined that by how many words it should have. So I realized that the most effective way of communicating your project, regardless of how abstract it may be, is to try to find different aspects of it that are quantifiable and presenting them in a way where the user or anyone who's actually reading about your project can better help understand the extent of what you're going for, while also understanding how you're quantifying what success or failure would mean to you. So I think in methodologies, numbers were something that really worked well for us.
Right, you're very right about it. So moving to Ms. Shahab. Shahab, can I have a quick perspective on the writing style of a proposal? Do you think there should be a writing style or a flow or language?
Right. So I think कि सबसे पहले अगर if we talk about the flow, so usually proposals के अंदर ना there is a flow which is required, right? That how the outcomes and like the goals and objectives and justification and outcomes and everything, right? So there is the flow available, right? So just follow that flow and you make sure that you think according to that flow, because that is यूजुअली अ नेचुरल फ्लो, मतलब टारगेट ऑडियंस से शुरू होके आप जिस तरह सोचना चाहिए आपको उसी तरह जो है वो उसकी अक्सर जो है वो फ्लो होती है, राइट? एंड बी आर्टिकुलेट, राइट? सो in some of the places it can be confusing, like objectives और goals, जैसे आपने पहले भी बात की थी कि so अगर आप इनको ऐसे सोचें कि basically an objective is why you're doing something, right? And a goal is like जैसे फुटबॉल में गोल होता है, you're going towards the goal, like the idea is to go towards the goal, right? So you are supposed to go to the goal, right? So that is the difference. So इसलिए जो उसकी terminologies है ना proposal के अंदर, so understand that and be very articulate, right? Don't repeat yourself and be very clear in expressing your thoughts in the simplest kind of language, right? Because and lastly I would say कि don't use a lot of jargon. मतलब अगर आप एक खास सेक्टर से ताल्लुक रखते हैं तो हो सकता है कि उसमें कुछ टेक्निकल jargon होती है, obviously, the kind of things that you would probably include. So write them in the simplest, like as simply as you can, because the person who is evaluating your proposal wouldn't want to spend time extra, researching कि ये क्या है और ये ऐसे क्यों होगा. So yeah, I think that's it.
Right. Thank you. So it's just like kind of an open question to everyone, and that's a very common question. So anybody who wants to answer that can take this question. The question is, while we talk about virtual activities only means that there's no food, no travel, no accommodation, no venue costs. So people are asking that where should we spend the approved funds then?
Can I go ahead?
Sure.
Another, I'm going back slightly one step. If someone who does not like math, someone who's like me, जो O levels के maths but कभी maths नहीं पढ़ा, so I think it would be कि आप जैसे मैंने अपना project phases में divide कर दिया था. Phase 1, for example, draft, make a website. Phase 2, open fellowship calls. Phase 3, shortlist the candidates. Phase 4. So जब आप phases कर देते हो ना तो एक articulate, एक बहुत अच्छी तरीके से systematic flow आ जाता है आपकी writing को भी. So that's one pro tip that I would suggest as well. हाँ, अब हम क्योंकि ग्रांट्स वगैरह के अंदर there's no activities, there are no venues, and मेरे लिए सबसे बड़ा मसला ये भी था, by the way, how to keep everybody entertained in the forum. क्योंकि जब हम ऑनलाइन करते हैं तो वो बहुत मोनोटोनस स्टैग्नेंट बन ही जाता है एक पॉइंट पे आके. आप किसी से फेस टू फेस तो हो नहीं, आप स्क्रीन के ऊपर हो. अब तो I think one of the most important things you can spend your money on is actually be able to, again, have a good program, have a good software as you can, because undoubtedly I didn't purchase Google Meet, but if I had Zoom platform, I would have been able to go in separate rooms and be able to, break down the program and have good icebreakers instead of just having them on one screen. So I think that would be a very good investment. And if I, honestly, looking back, had the budget and had the flexibility of doing it, then I would have purchased it. But since I had a lot of different other goals to meet, I had to skip on it. But that's one thing I think you should keep in mind.
Over to you, Aram.
So I would, kind of go in the different direction that if you have to ask about where you should be spending the money, maybe like just save it and don't spend it, right? Because I feel because I'm sure how the grant works is like every individual gets the amount that they get, and whatever is left over may even help another grantee get the grant and stuff like that. So I think considering that, because we also started off demanding the 100% of the grant amount that was being offered, but towards the end of the program, we noticed that we only had spent only about 80% of what we asked. And we were kind of really happy to see that while also reaching the goal of what we wanted to do and actually going beyond what we thought we would consider successful, we still ended up saving money for the grant. So I think if you're coming down to the question कि यार इस पैसे को मैं खर्च किस तरीके से करूं, so maybe while just like Manu mentioned, you know, what you can ensure is you have the right tools and you have better tools, but even after that, if you're having to consider that, maybe, you know, just don't.
Okay, Shahab, your perspective on it.
Right. So just to elaborate a little bit on what Mahnoor said, कि अगर आप अपने project को phases में divide कर लेंगे ना, कि you know outreach से start करके, obviously you have to get the participants and everything, and then you go on to, you know, so it will become easier for you to sort of break down the budget. ठीक है, तो इस तरह सोचें कि outreach में for example आपको शायद social media के ads run करने पड़े थोड़े से, ठीक है, एक तो like if you're short on money and you would like to spend it on other things, you know, use your own networks, outreach करें उसके through use करें, so that you don't have to spend any money, right? But जैसे Facebook के अगर आप थोड़े ads चलाने पड़े, if you have to get any graphic designing done, you know, because to again attract any potential participants that you need, right? Then obviously tools, because digital पे सबसे ज़्यादा emphasis जो है, like for example for my project, you know, I think almost 70% of the budget was for, you know, like the digital tools, right? And because I had 3 courses, so a little bit on, you know, content development for the courses and the whole design and everything. And then, you know, then if you have to, if you're giving certificates to your participants, to save money, get, you know, digitally designed certificates and send them digitally. Because अगर आप PCS वगैरह करेंगे तो, you know, या by post किसी भी courier से भेजेंगे तो आपके बहुत सारे पैसे लग जाएंगे, right? So I think this is like a breakdown of some of the costs depending on what you want to do.
Right, you're very right. And one thing I would like to add and tell our alumni that it's really not necessary to consume all of the grant money. If it's 200,000 for the virtual, it's really not necessary that you have to cover all 200,000. You need to use the grant that basically justifies your grant. So people sometimes are in the quest of completing that money and they just move towards the quantity instead of the quality. So we need to be very focused. It's just not about the money, it's about the quality of work that you are giving. So it totally depends that how much grant you have been given and how much is necessary to consume. So moving on to the next question, I would like to ask Manur. Manur, is a very serious question then, and we want a very good answer from that.
Okay.
The question is basically how important is a failure for success? And it is for the alumni who have failed to secure a grant, and how can they basically keep their morale high if their grant is rejected to apply again?
फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल रिजेक्शन का मतलब ये नहीं होता कि आपने जो लिखा है काम वो अच्छा नहीं है या जो आपका आइडिया अच्छा नहीं है. Force is good. Force is good. That's why you've taken the time out and the energy out to actually sit down and write. But I read somewhere, fail again, fail better. So I'll say it again, fail again, but you will fail better. So don't take this as a serious thing कि यार मेरी तो grant, you know, accept नहीं हुई है तो मैं क्या करूँगा. Try scaling it down, try minimizing it, and try to. अच्छा, एक और बात है, there is a very a good idea called open source, where you actually get the volunteers who can help you out in implementing a program, which is either virtually or either on a local level or at the, you know, physical level. So try forming a team anyway and try to implement it through an accessible, available platform. For example, you can even do it on WhatsApp. There's so many people who are giving actual great classes on WhatsApp as well these days. There is a very, very wonderful program by Fatma Rizwan. She's one of our alumni. It's called the Air School. It's a platform just like edX and Coursera, but it allows you to virtually create your own courses without having to purchase or buy a website, and you get a little bit of income coming in towards sustainable cycle bhi ban jata at the same time. So my request to you would be is, once you do implement your own project जो आपने grant में actually submit करवाया था, then you can apply this in the next year again, saying, you know what, I implemented ये grant itne time frame के ना with this much, so this is actually doable, okay? And the next time you do apply with a little bit of backup. Maybe you have an NGO on your side who wants you to implement this. Maybe you have a partner who wants to collaborate. Maybe you are selected for some CSR project, which just जिसके अंदर आपकी small project is actually very beneficial. Maybe it's helping out a lot of people जो आपको उसमें foresight में नजर नहीं आता. Second advice would be for people who feel like हम क्या करें अगली दफा apply करने में. Try to make your project innovative. Try to make it diversified. Try to make it something which is different than what we have actually been done before. I'm not sure if we have a list of all the ASG grant projects, but if we do, or if we even have summaries of these, just try going through these and understand, for example, Manu is in fellowship. How can I take her work and make it into something which is even more unique and not implemented yet? So, मेरा तो आप लोगों को यही advice होगी कि just don't give up on it that easily.
Right. That was a very great advice. So, Shahab, do you have any last words or tips for the alumni, please?
Yes, I would I think we've all given a lot of tips, काफी लोगों के लिए काफी सारी हैं अगर they want to implement it. But I would just say that when you make something, so you're very attached to it, obviously, right? So it was your idea, you like it, of course, right? But once you've written it, read it from a perspective that you haven't actually written it. इसको ऐसे पढ़ें कि आपको किसी ने कुछ पढ़ने को दिया है और आप वैसे ही पढ़ रहे हैं, ठीक है? So that change in perspective will probably make you improve on a lot of things. And even in the thinking process, be your own, like a devil's advocate kind of a thing. कि question yourself कि मैं इसको बेहतर कैसे करूं, या लोगों ने कैसे किया है, या has this been done before and there's nothing innovative in this, or I can do better, because you can always do better, right? So and especially after you get rejected, तो वो आपको जब rejection हो जाती है उसमें भी पता होता है अंदर से कि why was it that you actually got rejected, right? So there's always room for improvement. So I would just say that give it your best, and then आगे जो है वो let fate take care of it.
There's always a room for improvement. Moving to Arham. Arham, what are your last tips for the alumni?
I think just staying on the theme of failure, I oftentimes don't attribute it to something that may be lacking in oneself, but oftentimes it may also come down to just luck as well. Because like every time we've gotten a grant, we feel there was a factor of luck involved, in the sense that there might be so many competitive applications, but only a few of them could get the grant eventually, right? So it's not a reflection, not getting the grant is not a reflection of how bad you may have sent a proposal, or like the evaluator is not feeling that you are up to the mark, but sometimes it could just be the idea of you not making the cut just because of sheer luck. So I think keeping an open mind to these sorts of failures, and just coming back with an even better version and an improved iteration, is something that is bound to eventually succeed. So if you don't get selected once, try again with an improved version, and I'm sure that's bound to help.
Thank you. That was a good advice. I would like to thank everyone, like all three of you who were here and who gave us some very interesting tips about scoring a good grant. Apart from that, we answer the question as much as we can. If the viewers, you have more questions, you can write in the comment box and we'll answer those questions. And also, this was the third session. If you have, I saw some questions that were related to the session that had been conducted earlier. So if you can just visit Pakistan-U.S. Alumni Network page or your respective chapter page, you will see the previous two sessions that were about how to write a grant and its main objectives. So I hope everybody have learned from it, and some of you would have been brainstorming from now and would love to apply for a grant. We have our cycle open till 30th June, midnight. So I guess you all should grab your pens and jot down the ideas, and keep in mind the tips that these prestigious alumni have given us. And I hope that I'll see you all soon. And the ones who are going to apply the grant, I wish you very best of luck. Thank you, everyone. And it's all from our side.